So in your Bible, what I've written down is that this, and you can see it a little bit behind me there, how to reflect Christ in a darkening, hostile world of suffering. That's really what we're introduced to in chapter 1. Now, we're not covering chapter 1. We're only doing 2, 3, and 4. And you say, everyone always asks me, if we were at Panera, you'd say, how come? Why don't we do all of them? Why don't we do 5? That's so good. I say, I know. But see, that as soon as we start doing that, we have to cover all 1,189 chapters. I'm trying to survey the Bible, but I started out doing chapter 4 about darkening, hostile world of suffering. That's chapter 4 is all about that. But I always would say, well, look at chapter 2, because that talks about how you grow spiritually as newborn babes. And then chapter 3, if you're ever going to be married, or if you are married or hope to be, this is the chapter for you. So when we have all 3 of those, I usually would cover them by the way, as an aside. But now I'm going to focus on 2, 3, and 4. But to introduce Peter, look at verse 1 of chapter 1. 1:1, Peter, an apostle of Jesus. So I, circled that word apostle. Then look at who he's writing to. Still in verse 1. To the pilgrims of the dispersion in Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia. That's his target. And in just a minute, I'm going to show you why that's his target, where that was, and why that makes this book amazing, okay? So those are some things you should have marked and noted in your Bible as you read it. And I would read through every day this week. Well, what I would do is I'd read the whole book of 1 Peter, but you only are supposed to read chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4. But it's such a blessing. Take the extra time and read all 5 chapters. And I actually did all 5 in my journal, but I'm not going to show them to you because it's not part of our focus, but it's a blessing, okay? So the life of Peter has 3 parts. Each era of his life speaks of how he served the Lord. Number 1, in the Gospel by Mark, we have Peter walking with Jesus. Did you know that? Mark came to Peter as Peter was so hunted by the Roman Empire, and Mark recorded Peter's eyewitness account of walking 3.5 years with Jesus. So that's what the Gospel by Mark is. It's not Mark's Gospel, it's the Gospel by Mark recording the words of Peter and the eyewitness account of Peter. Number 2, in the book of Acts, as I just told you, chapter 1 through 12, we have Peter working for Jesus. So he's walking with Jesus, working for Jesus. Then from Acts 12 onward, the epistles of Peter, we have Peter waiting for Jesus. He was always talking about, I'm living in a tent, and the time of my departure is at hand. I'm ready to go. And that's what we learn. He was waiting for Jesus. Now, let's go through the book of Acts. Remember, the ministry of Peter, as you see here, is the first 12 chapters. It's kind of the what overshadows everything else is the life of Peter. Here are the key events, Acts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. You can read all those. In fact, this is personally what I do every time I read. I'm writing down, because when you write down, you see, and you're writing, and so there are all those parts of your brain that your handwriting affects, and then you're sharing this as a group. So you're hearing it and you're speaking it, and by using so many senses, it deepens it. So that's why I make this chart. Just for you to know, here's the Roman emperor that's in Acts chapter 1, it's Tiberius and Tiberius and Tiberius. You see all the way across. The Roman governors, notice that is Pilate all the way across because he's 26 to 36. Here's the date. And by the way, you get all this from the MacArthur Study Bible. So that's just a little tool for you to use. But now look what happens. In Acts chapter 10, when Peter's at Joppa and Paul is in Tarsus, we have a new prefect and we get a new emperor. Wow. And it's still, the first 12 chapters are all about Peter kind of in the spotlight. Here's a juncture. Herod Agrippa dies. Before he dies, he imprisons Peter. He's going to kill him, actually. He already killed James, the first apostle to die. Now he's trying to get the second apostle to be martyred. And so it's a juncture where persecution sends people all over the place. And that's part of the group that Peter is writing to those of the dispersion. Now look, James, before Peter writes, also, what Peter did is he went out and started ministering to all them all over the outside of Israel, but James becomes the pastor of the church at Jerusalem, and we covered that last week, and writes his first epistle of the New Testament. Now, Paul becomes central from here through the end of the book, and but one more thing I want you to see. The Gospel by Mark is probably written somewhere around Acts 17, when Peter is traveling and probably being hunted in the 50s. At least he's being, persecuted. And so just some of the events, and James was written here last week's. Paul's epistles are starting to be penned, but right here is Peter again. Now, this is the Roman Empire. Now, this is the map we use when we're studying both the video study tour of the Gospels and are primarily focused right here on the Holy Land, or this is what we use in the life and letters of Paul. Right here is Tarsus and Antioch, where Paul was from. The 7 churches were here. Paul's missionary journeys are right through this area and like this and back. So basically this is the world. Then Paul finally sails and is shipwrecked on Malta, comes back in to finally get to Rome right there. Now, after Paul's first Roman imprisonment, he wanted to go to Spain. Church historians tell us he might have even made it up here to Britain, and he might have either sailed or gone overland. So Paul, his life's amazing. And this is the map we use both in the video study tour of the Gospels as well as in the life and letters of Paul. But I want you to see Peter's main focus is this area right here. Now let me show you another map of that. This is the epicenter of the empire. Now I'll back up. Rome is here, but yet there in this province, Roman Asia, which we would call Turkey, this big purple blob there, was the most Roman part of the world. There are more Roman buildings in Turkey than in Italy. There are more Greek, see here's Greece right there. There are more Greek temples in Turkey, more Roman buildings. And by the way, there are more Holy Land sites in Turkey than even there are in Israel. I mean, it was the epicenter of the ancient world. But look at this. Do you remember what it says in 1 Peter 1, verse 1a or b? To the pilgrims of the dispersion, remember they were sent out by that persecution starting in Acts 12 and continuing on, scattered throughout Pontus, that's up here, Galatia, right here, and extending all the way down to here, Cappadocia, see it right there, Asia, Roman province of Asia, and Bithynia. So Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, Bithynia. This is where Peter was focusing. This was the most Roman part of the Roman Empire. This was also the epicenter of what God was doing around the world. This is where see the 7 churches that John writes to, that Jesus visits? All of those things are right here in this area. That, in fact, this area where Peter writes got more letters than any other part of the world. There are 14 epistles of the New Testament written to this area. Amazing to think about.